Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, peak performance coach, Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you. All of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
Well, welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. I want to tell you, every one of you, I appreciate you for coming on today, listening. Before we get started, I want you to just take a moment to please rate us, subscribe, and share us with 3 to 5 people, because today we have a really interesting guest on here. We have Rylo Kinn on today, and I have been following Rylo on Instagram for quite a while now, and then just lately on Facebook. We've just spoke for the first time today, and he's exactly what I was hoping. I just loved his interesting kind of iconoclastic style on Instagram, and you know I like people like that. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit about him, then we're gonna bring him on officially. So Rylo was born and raised in Sechelt, British Columbia, Canada. He has a passion for storytelling that began at a pretty young age. He spent his childhood exploring the beautiful natural surroundings of his hometown, sparking his imagination and inspiring his creative talents. As he grew older, Rylo's love for writing and storytelling only continued to flourish. His ability to spin a captivating yarn drew people in, and he quickly became known as the go-to guy for entertaining stories. Despite initially getting into some trouble for his wild imagination, Rylo's mother always believed that if he could harness this artistry, he would go far in life. And she was right, man. With the publication of his first poetry, Rylo began his journey as an author. Today he uses his hometown as an inspiration for him. He often draws on his memories of growing up in Sechelt in his writings. His ability to blend real-world knowledge with mystical and magical elements creates a unique and immersive reading experience that his fans can't get enough of. His first book was published in June of 2022, and it's titled The Dragon's Flute, and it's book 1 of the Draconia series. So everyone, I'm going to have a link to this book right at the bottom of the show notes. Please click on it and explore this. And I'll say this a couple of times today, but the first 5 letters we get in or comments we have coming back, you'll get a free copy of The Dragon's Flute on me, sent directly to your home. So without further ado, from British Columbia, my friend Rylo Kinn, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
It's funny because last week, Rylo, I did a podcast, I think on Thursday, and my guest was just getting over a cold. I was just starting one. You just got over a cold, and I'm about 70% over my cold now. So there's going to be probably some nose sniffling, some sneezing, and some coughing, and there's definitely a frog to my voice, but bear with me. So yeah, it's great to have you. Like I said, I followed you for a while, and you always have some cool stuff. I really liked your thing on Godzilla today and how much urine he would have to pass through every day if he was a real creature. And so stuff like, and I know you probably liked my comment back. Being in our 50s, we understand what that's like in the middle of the night. So
That's right.
Well, Rylo, I've gotten to know a little bit about you, but not nearly as much as I'd like to. So can you please spend a few moments telling myself and the Bamboo Pack audience a little bit about yourself, your growing up, your childhood, who or what inspired you to become an author?
Well, I grew up out in an area called Jervis Inlet. It's in Sechelt. Basically, it's away from the city. I'm a country guy. I hunted, I fished. I lived the natural life that way. As growing up, I ended up making my way out to the city where life kind of changed. But I just enjoy. I'm out in Abbotsford now, and that's just I like that out here. I'm a city boy now.
Well, how big is Sechelt?
Oh, geez, I would say 15,000, 20,000.
Okay.
Now, but back in the day when I lived there, it was less than that. I know you need 10,000 to make a McDonald's, and we never had one.
Is that really true? You need 10,000 people to make a McDonald's?
Yeah, that's what we found out. I remember when Seashell got there first. So
Well, and my town only has about 3,000 people, and we've had McDonald's for 20 years. But it's a resort. It's a resort town. It's a tourist town. So in the summers, it's flooded with people, and that's probably how they do their mathematics. I wonder.
Possibly.
Yeah, and a lot of traffic goes by there too. Well, that's great. So,
Yeah.
It's so funny. I would never have guessed that you were a country boy at heart and hunted and fished. I'm so surprised, but when I talk to my guests, people who have made it in life, who are making a difference, who are creating interesting works of art like yourself, how many people came from small towns? I would say
Right.
it's 85. I bet 85% of my guests are from small towns somewhere in this country or around the world. It's crazy. I never would have guessed that.
In touch with nature, in touch with life. It's our spiritual side, right? It's who we are at heart.
Do you think I know you've used Seashell as an inspiration a lot in your writings. Do you think also being in touch with nature and the woods and the rivers and the streams has that really spawned your curiosity and your artistry?
I think it kept it pure. It kept it clean. There was no confusion, no outer voices, outer influences. No stereotype stuff. It was just real.
Well, then, so when you were young, I know we talked prior, and you liked a lot of the Marvel comics growing up, where I was more of a DC guy. What inspired you? Was there some person, or was there a moment, or was it just the comics that inspired you to want to create fantasy and create worlds in your mind and then on paper?
Well, my roots go way back. I was 4 years old, I believe, when my dad took me to Vancouver, the big city, to watch a movie in 1977 called Star Wars: A New Hope. And we needed to take a ferry to get from Seashell. It was planes, trains, and automobiles just to see a movie of this era. And when I got there, I was never the same. That George Lucas Star Wars, it changed my entire outlook on everything. Up till now, there was nothing like that, right? And so I would say it began there. And sort of spread, seed planted, right? And of course, like you said, the Marvel comic and stuff like that. Stan Lee pretty much raised me. So yeah, in the younger years, I never really got into the fantasy or anything like that such until Excalibur and Merlin and all those stories started coming out. So yeah.
What
about it?
What year did Star Wars come out? Was that 76? 70?
I was 77.
77. I remember going to it, Rylo, in my hometown of St. Ignace, Michigan. 3,000 people. I don't think there's 3,000 anymore. Had a movie theater downtown like a lot of small towns did. I remember we went to Rocky Young's 10th birthday party. That was where we went to my buddy Rocky's 10th birthday party. And I remember to this day when they opened up those first scenes, I think it maybe was the beginning where it was, long, long ago in a galaxy far, far away. I remember this was larger than life for me. I mean, it was like, what in the hell is happening to my life now? And I'm not a massive Star Wars fan. I've seen them all, but my sons like Star Wars a lot more than I do. But I just remember my whole world changed like this. Nothing will ever be the same again for the way we process art and process films and process things like that. It was like, that changed everything. And I'll never forget that in the movie Jaws, when I saw that on the theater for the first time, the two moments I'm like,
I did swim for months.
I didn't either. I wouldn't even go to the pools.
Yeah. That was the worst.
And you talk about Stan Lee, and even though I was more of a DC guy, that guy, Stan Lee, for anybody out there who's never looked into Stan Lee was the creator of so many of the Marvel characters. I think he created the Fantastic Four, and he was. I could be wrong on all of his creations, but he was the spearhead behind the Marvel success story, Marvel Comics. But just listen to that.
He's a business guy.
He is, man. But he is just an interesting guy. Like I know he passed away just not long ago, a few years ago, but he listened to him being interviewed and his life story. It's so fascinating that because he was seemed always so laid back, but yet so ambitious at the same time. He had that kind of right mixture of, took life seriously at times when necessary, but most of the time he took himself very, very lightly. He didn't take himself seriously at all. He's very self-deprecating and
Absolutely, yeah.
I just like that style about him.
Well, he's that guy you could see at a coffee shop and start chatting with him, not know who he is.
Exactly. And which were his main characters he created?
I think it's Spider-Man, the one.
Yeah.
I know the Hulk, and I know there's a few that he did with partners. And I can't remember his name. I've written down somewhere, but he wasn't the creator of all the characters.
No.
Mostly took them all and kept Marvel alive, right?
Yeah, there was a character that they didn't believe. Maybe it was Spider-Man that they said nobody likes spiders, but there was a comic book that was going out, so he said, well, I'm going to put Spider-Man in that series as kind of an ending or like the final thing. And he snuck Spider-Man in there, and that episode just sold out. So then Spider-Man, I think it was Spider-Man, and then became this classic. Then he had his own series and he took off and now is probably one of the most well-renowned superheroes of all time, up there with Superman and Batman. And, maybe Iron Man. I don't know.
Yeah, which is DC. Yeah.
yeah, which are DC. Yeah, I go back to my DC roots. So when your book was published just over a year ago, this past summer. Since you started writing the book, The Dragon's Flute, what have been your learnings from the minute you maybe you've been writing it for a few years, I don't know, but when you really started getting into the seriousness of getting that book done until today, what have been some of your biggest learnings that you've had during that time frame?
Oh, geez, I'd have to say, everybody says writing the book is what you do and then you're an author, when really half of it's writing the book. The other half is the social media and the advertising, getting your name out there. That's a whole different world. I'd have to say, with the help of my friend who got me going in all this, she's a marketer, and the things I learned from her alone were just crazy. So I would have to say in the last year, I learned a lot about the marketing end and dealing with public and just writing for the genre, the commercials and stuff. But writing the book itself, I've been doing it for a lot of years. I did it as a hobby, and I actually started some of the characters in the Dungeons and Dragons games I played when I was in my late teens. And so I didn't really start jotting it down until my later 20s. And then, like I said, I just put it down for a year or two and just leave it at bay. But then in 2018, I got into a divorce. And, it was probably one of the toughest moments for my life, a big struggle. It was a nasty divorce that lasted a few years. So a friend of mine said, hey, because I was kind of I was feeling depression. I was starting to really lose myself. I had all our friends were our friends for 20 years. There was nobody, no family around. So I found myself trapped in this house until through the divorce. And of course, just when things were starting to look good, COVID hit. So then I was trapped in the house for another couple of years. But during that, a friend came and said, well, you talk about this book. Why don't you do something about it? And so when I started writing it in 2018, I ended up rewriting it in its entirety. And I found it was more therapy than anything. I didn't plan on publishing. I just was getting me through the day. And so as the book became more developed, a friend of mine I met who was a marketer started reading it. And she said, we should really do something with this. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm more like, oh, this pulled me out of my darkest time by writing a book. I don't know if I really want to put all this on the table, right? But she convinced me, and then at age 49, which is peculiar, I published my first book. And so that's the roots of the story and how it came to be.
Well, I love the subtitle, I guess is what we call it. I like the quote, "The true darkness isn't the lack of light, it's the lack of hope."
That's right.
That almost sounds like the Spider-Man, where there is great power, where there is great responsibility, or comes great. It's almost that prophetic and that powerful. I mean, so this.
Yeah.
So everybody out there, you listening out there, this book has a 4.6 star rating on Amazon right now. So if you want to give this a look, I'd like you to click on the link below. And like I said, first 5 people, you're going to get a copy from me. Rylo, when you said writing this book was obviously during a difficult time, the divorce, and then you kind of felt like you were losing yourself. Then COVID hit, and we're all stuck inside, and it was a dark time for a lot of people. Did you use it as therapy? Did you also, in the characters in the book and the plot and that, did you use some of your own internal experiences and thoughts and feelings while you were writing it?
Absolutely. Each character has a bolt of energy coming from everything that I experienced. And the story goes and shows characters, and you'll know as reading the book that each character has its own little story, which is a part of what I went through. I just little pieces in each character to expand their depth. And yes, there's a lot of emotion in these characters.
So, I mean, I think I just want to stop for a minute because when we think about the difficult times we go through in life, divorce, financial problems, depression, anxiety, health concern, whatever we might go through, there's so many routes we can take with that. We can sit back and just kind of let the world kind of tumble over us. We can feel hopelessness and despair. We can feel pity, whatever it might be. Or you can take those moments and really find some purpose in it. And that's what you did here. And I believe this wholeheartedly, that we don't find our purpose in life in the moments that are brightest. We find those moments, our purpose in those moments when we feel that sometimes at our lowest or our darkest. It's the things that we worry about at 3:00 in the morning that we get up and fret over. Within those moments of our lives lies somewhere in there, and that lining lives our purpose. And so anybody out there right now going through something, you don't have to be a writer. You can be anything you are. You can, whatever you're going through, you can take those dark moments and make something beautiful out of it. It doesn't have to be a work of art. It can be something else. It can be time you put toward your self-development and self-care, time you put toward others and loved ones, time you put toward your job, your career, your fitness, your business, a side hustle, whatever it might be. Because remember, the true darkness isn't the lack of light, it's the lack of hope. So don't worry about the light around you. Worry about the hope that's inside you, man. I love that. I'm on my iPad right now, and I've had your books in my cart, so I'm trying to order it, but I don't ever really work my iPad other than I only use it for my podcast. So I'm going to order it as soon as I get off here and have it shipped overnight because I'm just finishing up a book right now called The Dead of Winter. And it's about this group of people who get stuck in some avalanche going to some Rocky Mountain retreat. And they're all strangers. Their bus breaks down. They go to a cabin, and one by one, every one of them starts dying. They getting their heads chopped off, and they don't know which one of the people it is. So it's like a whodunit murder mystery, all set in this little cabin in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. And it's good. It's a good book, but I'm really ready to be done with it. So, I'm looking forward to jumping on to the Dragon's Flute next here. So the next question I always ask, Rylo, as people are curious, and you kind of alluded to it, I think, a few moments ago, but what was one of the most difficult things you've gone through in your life, and then how did you overcome it? And you might have answered that already with your divorce and everything, but can you explain on that, extrapolate that a little more?
Yeah, I would say, I've been through a lot like everybody else, but it was the divorce really hit me hard. It was like death. It was a time for me. And that's why that's what I use writing for. So that's, I did answer that.
Yeah. Do you think, had you not gone through the divorce and kind of that almost some depression, kind of lost job, and then COVID hit, do you think if those things wouldn't have lined up, the Dragon's Flute wouldn't be something out there right now? Do you think it wouldn't be something you created? Or would it have taken more years?
That's hard to say. I mean, you could easily say years prior, if I didn't go through, if I made certain decisions, like say I never got married and I took a left instead of a right, the book could have been done a lot sooner. So I don't think that way, no. I just think that everything happens for a reason, and I think that book came out as for me to help myself and to push forward to help other people who can relate to the characters and stuff.
And I think that might be more of it too, is, I know I don't write fiction at all. I do a lot of writing, but I don't write fiction. I journal a lot. I journal for six mornings every week. And I find that when life is going really well for me, my journal entries are pretty light and there's not a lot of depth to them. But man, when I'm going through a dark time, or my journal entries, man, they're deep. And I can really flush out some emotions. And I just wonder, had you not gone through that while you were writing, would you flush out the characters like you did?
It sparked it. The characters were definitely inspired. And yes, okay, I will agree in there for a bit. But yes, how do I say? I think that now, like, especially like I'm writing book 2, I think that's a lot of my confusion right now. I'm a book ahead of everybody and and state of mind and everything. But now I'm writing book 2. I'm actually controlling these emotions and making them. I'm writing them now rather than they're inspired by the hardship or the heartaches I went through. But yeah, no, they're initially. I think you're right. Yeah, Draconia, the Dragon's Flute. A lot of that was very well needed to have that dark edge from my life to inspire it. And I think you're absolutely right too. I think everybody needs something like that. They need it to go through. You need to hit rock bottom in order to get back up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think in a lot of states writing this book, the characters are definitely wouldn't have made it so real, so vivid without it.
We've had a lot of writers on the podcast, authors on the podcast, and I don't know if I've ever asked this question, but I'm curious, and I know a lot of other people, because I think we talked about this a little bit before that we started recording today. People have a book out, especially when it's in the public sector. You can buy it on, different formats and Amazon. You see it in social media. You see it out there. You see it in the bookstores. You see that person as just different. Oh, they have a magic to them. They were born that way. Writing comes easy to them, but I don't believe that. It may for a few, but I think most people will put a lot of work into this. This is a gritty industry. So I'm curious is there a certain protocol you take, Rylo, that gets you in the mood to write? And then what does your day look like? How do you structure your writing schedule? Is it just whenever you feel it, or do you have to sit to write to feel it, or what does it look like?
With me, I wake up at 6 a.m. and I write till usually around noon, sometimes way past. Some days I'll look at it and just not feel it. Some people call it writer's block, but I just think writing isn't a 9-to-5 job. You do when you feel it. So people, I mean, it's funny because you're right. People think that a writer is somebody so different and special. I think most of us are emotional wrecks. But, well, just the other day, it was so awesome. I was in a meat store, and this girl staring at me, and I was kind of wondering what was going on. And she ran out and said, "You're Rylo Kinn." And I said, "Yeah, who are you?" I'm just me. I'm really excited. So excited she was excited, but I was like, why don't we just chat, go for a coffee or whatnot, right? Like I'm not, I'm nothing what people think I am. I'm just normal Joe.
Hey, Rylo, I've seen all your social media stuff. You do stand out.
Oh, Thank you.
You do,
Thank
brother.
You, very much.
You stand out. That's the presence that I thought that intrigued me to say, let's talk to this guy and get him on here. So when you said you get up at 6 and you write till roughly noon, and sometimes it's coming, sometimes it's not. It reminds me of what Jerry Seinfeld said. He just made sure he wrote a joke every day, and he had a calendar on his wall, and he had made sure that was circled every single day. And I'm like, it's just that consistency that sometimes you create shit, sometimes you create magic, sometimes it's in the middle.
Right. Sometimes you create something that's horrible, but then once you're going through the story and you come back, you realize that that's a good piece over here. This actually fits, or this is doable now, right? You can't panic about writing. A lot of people do that to themselves, right? They think they have to have it written, blah, blah, blah. And I'd imagine if you're working for like Disney or something, there's a lot more pressure on for those people. But as an average writer or somebody that's a hobbyist and stuff, it's just how to come when you want it to come.
I think that's, one thing you just said, you can't panic about writing. I have been working on this book for most of the people listening, at least the members that have been with me for a while, their subscribers, for so many years, and I put a deadline on it finally, and I want to get it done. I do panic about it. I like to write short little things, like little motivational things or thought-provoking ideas or thoughts. I don't like to sit down and write. And so when I walk by my laptop and it's over there, my book is open, I literally get nervous. And I have a hard time starting the process because it's daunting to me. And I think part of me is also, who the hell wants to hear what I have to say? There's that, there's that, there's that imposter syndrome. There's that little imposter there on my shoulder going, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. No point wasting your time writing this book. Nobody's going to read this thing anyway. And who are you to write this stuff down and give advice or whatever it is, And I just circled your advice. You can't panic about writing, because I think I'll put that right on my desk, actually, I'll frame that instead of, or the sticky note anyway. Don't panic about writing, Ryan.
That's, you know what? I gotta say that to Adams there. He said, don't panic. I just added don't to the writing part.
Well, I get the don't panic part, but about the writing, that's where I panic most in life. So,
yeah.
So when you're as a writer, when you got the book published, just 16 months ago or so, whenever it came out in the summer of 22. Now this young lady walked up to you, this person the other day, and said, "Hey, you're Rylo Kinn." That's a cool feeling. So as a writer, it's really neat. But what's a real win for you as an author? What do you consider that's a really great feeling? That as an author,
that sure is.
Is there anything?
Yes, I've had a couple.
Go ahead.
The thing for me would be absolutely. My book is now being put in bookstores. I have one in Coles, Abbotsford, British Columbia, the Coles bookstore in Abbotsford, sorry, and in Chapters in Coquitlam. And I think what the win was every time I walked by these stores, I always pictured my book on the shelf. And now I have commercials of me with books on the shelves, and I'm being sold in these stores. It's just the beginning, right? I mean, the win would be worldwide, right?
Right.
But this is a win. And there's no more better feeling than to walk by a bookstore and see your book displayed up front. That's the way.
That's a great one. I mean, because it's different to build. I mean, everybody puts their heart and soul into their art, their work, whatever their work is. And I think there's a special connection between an author and his or her book, because I know if I created a better coffee mug, let's say, I'm looking at my coffee mug right now, so I would be really proud of it. I would be really proud of this. I created a really cool design, ergonomically designed coffee mug that keeps your coffee cold, warm, for up to 7 hours a day, whatever it might be. That's really cool. And there's a lot to be proud of something like that. But when you write a book, every word you write is a creation. And there are literally tens of thousands of words in a book that it's like your whole heart and soul can go into a book. And I can't even imagine, what that feels like when you see somebody picking it up, or you see it on the shelf, or you see it in the window, or you hear somebody talking about how it affected them. it's got to be the most amazing feeling in the world.
Oh, even I think the first time I had the euphoria, that great feelings when it first came back from the editor and I reread it. It's a little more straight, clean cut. And from there, it was just little steps all the way up to the bookshelf, right? But, working with the artist, there's a lot of things. I mean, the author's novels are babies, right? It's our child. And a lot of my author friends I know even celebrate the birthdays of each book. So
that's a great idea.
Pretty close. Yeah, I know. I missed mine last year. This year.
Well,
I guess I'm not a good dad.
well, you can get this. You just have to double down on the second birthday then.
I will. The book was too young to know anyway.
Right. The book didn't know any better.
Yeah.
I celebrate the anniversary of my business every year. In fact, it's coming up on 27 years here on the 20th of November. And I literally buy myself a gift every year. I've missed a couple of years.
Awesome.
Yeah, it started off when the first couple of years I didn't have any money. I'd buy myself a book, like a book that I wanted to read. Now today, actually came in the mail today, was a really nice briefcase / backpack combination that I've been wanting. So I bought it for my 27th anniversary. And because it is a way, there's a celebratory, there's a proud moment when you have your book, your anniversary of your book or your business or your product, and it's not unlike family, a wedding or an anniversary or a child. It maybe not the same, but it's still pretty cool, man. Especially when you have a cool tagline like "True darkness isn't the lack of light; it's a lack of hope." I don't care what my AI does, artificial intelligence, because they always give me a bunch of book recommendations. That is going to be the title of this episode, without a doubt. I'm superseding my AI recommendations. That's such a cool statement. I love it. I love that one.
I'm so glad. I'm going to have one on each book. There's like 4 more coming.
Oh, so
and positive statement to match the book itself.
Oh, I love that. So when can we expect the release of book 2?
Book 2, I'm releasing it next year.
Okay.
I tell you, my first draft came over to 700 pages, so I had to calm it down a bit. I'm trying to keep it within the 560 to 600 page for each novel. For many reasons. My book artist, for one, wants to keep everything in sort of check. But so next year, and then after that, I've already written them all in my head. It's just about getting them on paper. So
okay. Well, I know
try to bring them out every couple of years.
The Dragon's Flute has 587 pages, something like that. I saw.
Yeah, that's right.
Like that. Yeah, that's a good length of a book. I get disenchanted. I don't know if that's disheartened. I guess maybe it's disheartened by books that are 1,000 pages. And then sometimes you get a book that's 250 pages and I'm like, do I really want to read it? Because I'm going to be done in a day or two and I have to buy another book, So I like that, 400 to 600 page range. That's kind of my sweet spot for fiction anyway.
Well, there's in this one, the first 3 chapters, there's a lot of world building. I always tell people just enjoy the ride. Don't really try to control your journey. It's going to control you for you. And once you get to that 3 chapters, this 600-page book just blurs by. I've had people that they were just blown away. They just couldn't put it down because that's always cliffhangers. There's always something that's edging you on to the next page. So everybody's like, I just read your book in a week. When's the next one coming out? I'm like, oh, no. Should have made it longer.
Well, who's that author that I think the first book was The Name of the Wind or Name the Wind or Name of the Wind? He's kind of in the same genre as you. His first 2 books were, I think first 2 or 3 were just smash bestsellers. And then everybody's been waiting like 10 years for the 3rd book. I have 2 copies of the first book. I've never read it, but my son-in-law swears by it. He's read the first 2 and he's been waiting for, I think, a decade now for the 3rd book. I'm like, man, and the books are like 1,000 pages long. They're really, really thick. So,
The Game of Thrones equally, right?
Oh gosh,
big gaps in between books.
Yeah. Well, I loved the first two. I read them, I devoured them, and then I got halfway through the third one, and I just was tired, and so I put it down.
Yeah.
And then I went through and started watching the TV, the HBO series. But I only read up until the first two seasons, and I thought I'm not going to go any further. But now I'm just blowing through the series on TV again because I know they're different anyway to some degree. But I know there were gaps, but I didn't know the gaps because I read them late. So I bet the first 4 books were already written before I even started writing or reading them. So it's like that. So. I know my son in college, he started reading just for fun this fall, all the Harry Potters again. He just said, he loved those when he was a kid. I'm going to read them again. He really enjoyed them. And he's really enjoying the second time around too. I know those are.
Well, those sold a lot of copies.
Oh, geez, I know they did. I think it made J.K. Rowling a fairly wealthy person.
Well, even so, she's the first billionaire author, and she's not even billionaire status because she donates so much.
So
to charities and stuff. Like, she's just a brilliant human being. So
she has made more than Stephen King.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know that.
She's I know it's hard to believe, really, when you think about it. But I know it's a children's book, right era, right genre, great story.
Right, yeah. And then and the movies don't hurt.
No, well, that's where the writer makes the money. Not from selling books.
Right. Yeah. Well, let's hope the Draconia series gets some TV, some film time, some silver screen time in the future.
I keep shouting out, "Hey, Netflix over here," but nobody hears me.
Well, time will tell. Time will tell, man. I'm looking forward to it now that we've talked. I'm even more excited about it now that we've talked. So I have a question. If I were to come to Seashell today and I'm going to bring my time machine and we're going to get in it, we're going to go back to that young boy who's kind of he's a good storyteller, maybe get into a little mischief with his storytelling a little bit. And you could sit down with that younger version of yourself and you could sit down and just give advice. And I'm going to sit back and just observe. What would you say to your much younger storytelling self?
I would say never, ever stop. That makes you happy. Don't think about money. Don't think about fame. Don't think about the bookshelf. Just write the story. Yeah, that's all I would say. Just go for it. Just continue your path. All the bumps, all the hills, all the pain, all the good times, that's all going to amount to one thing at the end. That's the only advice I give me. Well,
that's such a good piece. I just finished this morning listening to on Audible, the memoirs of Matthew Perry, who just passed away from the Friends series.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you, if you get a chance to listen to his autobiography, it is fascinating. And he just finished this. Was after COVID, and then of course he died last week or 2 weeks, a couple of weeks ago. So when I heard he died, I had heard about this book, so I bought it and I just listened to it as I was traveling, and finished it this morning as I was kind of getting ready for work. And one of the things he talks about in there is his whole quest in life was to be famous. That was what he wanted, to be famous. His dad was always trying to be famous. And never really made it as dad didn't as an actor, but he was, did some acting, and he realized after all this drug addiction and alcoholism and all the depression he went through, I mean, he was taking 60 Vicodin a day. Matthew Perry was 60 Vicodin a day. He went through detox 56 times. It took him decades to get over this. And he realized that it wasn't the fame he wanted. In fact, he said, I would give up this fame in a minute to overcome this addictions that I've carried. You think about that, and so many people start off in these worlds of celebrityism, whatever it might be, whether you're going to be an actor or a singer or an author. And we think what we really want is we want to be famous. And I mean, that's a nice added benefit. But if we go into it with that mentality, that's why we're doing it. We're going to sell a lot of our soul to get there. And I just love that. Your advice is spot on. Never, ever stop. If it makes you happy, Don't think about being famous, just write. So for you out there listening, for anything you're doing right now, don't think about fame. Don't think about necessarily even the effect. If it makes you happy, just do it and keep doing it. Keep getting better every single day. Just don't never ever stop. Just write or whatever it is you do. Perfect advice. So I don't have to ask the next question, which is what's next for you. I know what it is. It's book number 2 coming out in 24. You already got books 3 and 4 in your head. So anything else, any other projects you're working on or anything in your personal life that's kind of interesting and fun that you're excited about?
I've got 2 side projects for other book series that I have piles and notes that I've been sort of in and out of. I mean, of course, I'm going to finish Draconia to the end, but now I'm getting eager on these projects. They're going to be cool. It's going to be a little bit different, or quite a bit different.
Okay.
So, yeah, other than that, just I want to travel the world. That's all I want to do these days. I'm at the age, I have no kids, no wife. So I've been spending a lot of time in the plains, trying to see everything and absorb as much as I can on this beautiful planet. That's about it.
What has been your favorite destination so far?
Well, I think Cuba was quite fun. I've been there a couple times. But I'm still early at traveling, so when I get through Italy and Rome and all that stuff, I'll let you know. How's that sound?
I like that. Better yet. Good. Well, good. Rylo, as we begin to wrap up our conversation, is there any question that I didn't ask that you wish I would have, or is there any final message you want to leave with us today?
All I want to say is that writing saved me, I think. Writing pulled me out of a dark place, and writing has always been a hobby. If you ever want to do anything in life, you just focus your heart on it. You focus your soul. Go for it and never, ever give up. Never quit. And most importantly, do it for yourself. That's all I got to say. Have a good day.
I love that so much. So I'm going to repeat that, everyone. Look at with Rylo what he went through. Writing saved him. It pulled him out of a dark place. And so whatever you're going through right now, it's a really good opportunity to say, okay, what do I really like to do? What is it that I really find passion for? Where can I maybe find my purpose in these dark moments? And then focus your heart and soul on it. Never, ever give up. Rylo, I can't imagine a better way to end today's conversation. I asked you before if you could stand for a few minutes after we wrap up. And in the meantime, that was a lot of fun. I knew when we started talking today before we started recording, we were going to have a lot of fun. And I really, really liked what you had to say. And I love the statement. Oh gosh, now my thing shut off, but I'm going to read it again because I want to end with this one. That true darkness isn't the lack of light. It is the lack of hope. Rylo Kinn, I thank you so much for being such a fun guest on the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Thanks a lot for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And I can't wait to get you back on once book 2 goes into publication so we can talk about that book.
Sounds wonderful.
All right, Fred. Great. Everyone out there, please click on the show notes today. Look down at Rylo's book, The Dragon's Flute. Click on it, explore it, buy it. And again, the first 5 people who reach out to me, tell us what this episode did to you. You're going to get a free copy from me directly sent to your home or office. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you all. Talk to you all in a few days. In the meantime, remember to get out there and strive, love, and live.